building a better Bay Area for a safe and secure future. This is ABC7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. Welcome to our daily program called Getting Answers. We're asking experts your question every day at 3 o'clock to get answers for you in real time. Coming up today, we've got a mix of topics. We'll be speaking to a UC Davis doctor who's testing a form of birth control for men. And he's seeking couples locally to participate in the trial. Could it be for you? But first, today's big headline, the sudden halt on reopening in San Francisco. Under new public health orders that just came down in the past couple of hours, all these businesses that you see in this graphic right here are not allowed to reopen next Monday like they were told a few days ago. Mayor London Breed saying it's in response to rise in cases in the city, the county, the Bay Area, the state. She says numbers are still low, but rising rapidly. Public Health Director Dr. Grant Colfax just hosted a Zoom news conference on the matter. We're going to play some of that for you right now.
So I am just wondering, how long will this be delayed for?
Yes, very good question. We'll have to look at how the data develops over the next few days to have a better sense of how long things may need to be potentially delayed. As we've said, we really need to follow the data and science. We have seen a increase in our positivity rate. The question is that curve. In other words, when we talk about flattening that curve is not flat right now. In fact, that curve is getting more and more vertical. We hope that if everyone does their part to cover their face, social distance, and take good hygiene measures, that curve will start going back down and flatten, and we will be able to move forward. But it will take time. I think over the next few days, it will be especially telling to see where we are with regard to that curve and whether we can move forward with our reopening plans.
Our next question comes from Dominic.
Yes, hi. I am just curious about whether there is any indication yet of any trends among this 103 new cases, any sort of similarities or parallels among demographics, or if anybody is known to have participated in particular activities that may suggest there are reasons beyond just the general community spread for these new infections.
Yeah, so we are certainly taking a very hard look at that. And to see exactly if there's any indication that this is tied to any specific event. We don't have any indication at this point that it's tied to a specific facility or an event, but with our contact tracing, partner notification efforts, we will do everything we can to better assess that. And right now, there is evidence that this is, as we have had in San Francisco since the beginning of the epidemic, there is certainly a greater representation of Latinx diagnoses in these cases, just proportionate to the population in San Francisco at large. And so we're seeing that pattern in this increase as well. I think again, it will have to be looking at the next few days in particular to see whether that pattern is sustained and to specifically answer the questions that you're asking.
All right, so that was San Francisco's Dr. Grant Colfax. So joining us now, given that they're putting the brakes on the reopenings, is Patrick Evan, owner of Patrick Evan Hair Salon in San Francisco, Union Square. I know you guys had been told a later date, but then earlier this week, the mayor said, let's accelerate it, right? Make it Monday if you wanted to. I know you were going to wait a few days after that, but now you're getting the brakes put on things again. So what are you doing? How are you reacting to this? Are you surprised, not surprised? Does this present a problem for you, or were you ready for it?
You know, I think that if there's one thing I know now, it's that I just don't know. I think this is pretty much the bracket breaker, decision that I have no way of judging anything anymore. So I'm at a loss for really understanding exactly, when our reopen date is. And, but I would say this, that if there's one thing that is coming out of this that's good, is that it's kind of shows me that London Breed is willing to put data and science before politics and finance, and on you know, a safety level. I really appreciate that. I think that you know, we need to be safe, and I want people to come back to the work and feel comfortable coming back to an environment that is going to be the safest possible environment that we can create. And I think that London Breed's making choices that are really difficult, but I understand them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What kind of modifications had you made that, you know, that you took on during this time period to ensure that when you do open back up, you can try to ensure safety to the best of your ability?
Well, we've established a lot of procedures and protocols for clients handling when they come in, temperature checks at the front door. We're going to have somebody outside checking our guests in to ensure that we can monitor the elevator properly and ensure that client traffic through the building is minimized so that we can create social distance in that respect. Cleaning supplies, I mean, like disinfectants, things like that, they're very hard to get. So the extra time that we've had has been really, you know, fortunate in the respect that we've had enough time to become preppers and get everything that we've needed to be able to open with an abundance of cleaning products and disinfectants. You know, getting everybody on the same page, like as far as all of our my coworkers on the same page as to what the procedures and protocols are going to be for turning stations over and making sure that we disinfect and sanitize, you know, all the areas that, you know, each individual guest is touching with their stylist. The time has been pretty fortunate to be able to handle all that.
Right. So what does this mean, though? I imagine, you know, procuring supplies and getting things set up in terms of like dividers and other safety things. That's one thing. But what about personnel? It must be hard to get people back and then alert them again to say, whoops, actually, sorry, you can't come back in. We don't know when. Is that what's happening? And are you losing potential employees because of this?
You know, it's interesting because I think that, you know, when we had an initial timeline for July 13th, the timeline was out there and people started to kind of depend on that. I mean, rely on that timeline. So when they, you know, were told that, you know, when we were all notified that the timeline was moved up to the 29th, I don't really know if everybody felt super comfortable coming back on the 29th. It was kind of like we all kind of felt like we weren't ready. I know from a standpoint of contacting guests, we were not going to be able to get through all of the guest load that fast. But the overwhelming majority of pretty much everybody, I had a call with everybody last night to go over all these procedures and protocols, and everybody's pretty on board. There are a few people that are feeling uncomfortable and a little bit reluctant, but so far we've had a really positive response on people being willing and feeling good. I
imagine you had started to take appointment bookings. Are you having to call people back and cancel?
You know, the thing that's kind of fortunate is for us, we had not reached out to guests yet because we wanted, that's the reason why we kind of wanted to delay it a little bit, even though the timeline was the 29th. For us, we want to do it right. We want to do it the right way. We want to do it safe and mindful. And so we had a way of, you know, we're establishing a procedure for reaching out to all the guests first that have lost appointments during the time that we've been down. And that is thousands of people that we've had to, you know, that we're going to have to reach out to. So we haven't reached out to guests yet. So we can, you know, message them and let them know that it's being, you know, a delayed date to be determined. So we're lucky that way.
Right. All right. For folks who are just joining us, once again, San Francisco Mayor London Breed today announced that she is pushing back the reopening date that was scheduled for Monday to allow hair salons such as Patrick Evan in San Francisco to reopen. Also, nail salons, barbershops, outdoor bars, indoor museums, tattoo shops, massage parlors, zoos, and outdoor public pools. They will not be able to open now come Monday because of San Francisco's increase in the number of daily new cases. And Patrick, just so you know, I know you watch the numbers as well. San Francisco on June 22nd had a new number of cases of 103. So that is the highest since the pandemic began. And in the past couple of days, a little bit lower, but still around 40 new cases per day. I don't know if you saw Governor Gavin Newsom's press conference a couple of hours ago. He pointed out that it was super alarming in California in terms of the test positivity rate. So it's not just that we're testing more. Of the tests that are being administered, 5.7% are coming back positive in the last 14 days. In Imperial County in Southern California, just across the border to the east of San Diego, 23% test positivity rate. And we're talking about a lot more younger people testing positive, right? In the beginning, you had a lot of older folks, but now as young people start to gather, as the counties reopen, this is what's happening. And I wonder, Patrick, do you know people within your circle who had gotten it either through jobs in which they're in contact with people, whether they're essential workers delivering things, or young people who are, going out to bars, if not in San Francisco, because of course it's still closed here. What are you hearing?
Are you saying what am I hearing as far as people catching COVID, or are you saying
Yes.
hearing what are people's behaviors?
Yes, in terms of both the behaviors that you've seen among the younger demographic group, because that is now where they're seeing the spike, right, in terms of testing positive, and also whether you're seeing, perhaps you've been out of the immediate San Francisco area, what people are doing and the situations they're putting themselves in.
It's really interesting you say that, because depending on where you are in San Francisco, you can get a different sense of reality. I've been in my salon doing some work by myself, and downtown on Grant Street, it's extremely, it's boarded up, and it's extremely, quiet, and there's hardly anybody out, and those that are out are wearing masks. And I was driving through the marina a few days ago, and it was like a night and day difference. Everybody was, so many people were out. They had outdoor dining going on, but that also kind of, added to that was drinking too. So you had a whole bunch of people just out without masks, drinking and doing whatever they were doing. And if you're downtown, you could feel like, wow, it feels like we shouldn't be open, and when you go to the marina, you're like, wow, it seems like everything's kind of normal. It's really weird, so I haven't really been doing a whole bunch of things at all with anybody else, so I don't really have a good context to give you in that, with the exception of looking like anybody else would on Instagram or something. But I don't have as much context as I would like to be able to give you there.
I understand. And there is this kind of disconnect between what we're seeing in terms of the behaviors people are now engaged in, and then the numbers, the graphs, the charts that tell a different story with the numbers going up. And the governor today pointing out this dichotomy and pointing out that Californians wear your mask, try to stay home, and then Mayor London Breed also taking this action to pause the reopening. That's now being delayed, not going to happen Monday for you. But Patrick, Evan, always good to chat with you and get your perspective. Take good care, and we'll connect again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break. The conversation, as you know, always continues on our live streams. When we come back on air there, we're going to talk about something else that's been getting a lot of attention this week, and that's ethnic studies. It may be coming to the California State University system. We'll talk about that when we come back. All right, Facebook friends, thank you for joining us today. It's a potpourri, if you will, a smorgasbord of hot topics, because we are tackling COVID-19, the state's response, San Francisco's response. And I should also mention that Contra Costa County is also just now announcing that they may delay things as well in terms of pushing back the reopening. They will make a decision on Monday as to whether they're going to push back the timeline, but they are reacting to the Governor Newsom as well, saying they are reevaluating because of the spike of cases in California. And in California, in the last few days, we've seen a consistent number of new cases daily. 5,500-ish is what we had yesterday. A couple of days ago, it was over 7,000. And that number really sent Governor Newsom into kind of a new mode, new phase. After not having held news briefings daily for a while, he held one and talked about how these numbers are alarming. And at this rate, we may see a tripling of hospitalizations across the state within a month. And that is a scenario that he is trying to avoid. He urged Californians to wear masks and take precautions. As you know, it is mandatory now to wear a mask in California when you're out and about. However, enforcement is not the case in most counties, and we haven't heard of people really getting ticketed for something like that. So right now it is mandatory, but it does depend a lot on voluntary compliance by people. So all that is on the table. But right now we're going to shift gears. We're connecting with our guests who are going to talk about ethnic studies as a requirement for school coming up. Quick drink of water. Checking in with my producer. Our guests are good, both of them? Excellent. How long is the segment? Okay, so we have a 5-minute conversation, and then in our last block, we're going to talk about a new way to do contraception, and it's going to be a male contraception. All right, welcome back. We now want to turn to a very important conversation that's being had in California amid the racial reconciling that's happening in this country right now. Now to talk about race, ethnicity, and their stories, and teach those topics in schools. How to do it. Countless important racial moments are marked throughout human history, but largely skipped over in traditional textbooks, or perhaps told only through one perspective. Now there is a push to change that in California. The question is how to best do that. So joining us today for this conversation, California Assembly Member Jose Medina, who represents portions of Riverside County. He's also a former ethnic studies professor. And Karina Herrera Loera, the board vice president of the Alum Rock Union School District in San Jose. Nice to have you both. Assembly member, let's start with you, because yesterday, there was a state bill that you co-authored. It was approved and now moves to the governor's desk for a possible signature. It would require all California state universities, CSU system, to implement a 3-unit ethnic studies course as a requirement to graduate. Talk about why you supported this and what's the ultimate goal.
Yesterday's bill was a bill introduced by State Assembly Member Shirley Weber, and that was the bill, as you stated, to make ethnic studies a requirement in the CSU. My bill, AB 331, which has not been passed by the Senate yet, would require high school students to take a ethnic studies class for high school graduation. So there are 2 bills.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, Assemblywoman Weber's bill did pass, and that would make it the CSU graduation requirement. And I think that calls for taking something within the Ethnic Studies Department that focuses on Black American, Latino American, Asian American, Native American, their experiences. And before, there had not been such a requirement. I have to say CSU is not completely on board because they fear legislative interference in designing their curriculum, and they have their own perspective on how to approach that. I want to ask you, Assembly Member, why is this something that needs mandating?
Well, I'm going to talk about the bill that I authored, AB 331, the one that's asking for ethnic studies at the high school. And the reason that I'm authored that bill is because as an ethnic studies, Chicano studies teacher, I saw how powerful ethnic studies can be to especially students of color who have seen themselves excluded in the curriculum. And once they see themselves reflected in the curriculum, they go from being passive students to being active students, students who are eager to learn more about their own background. Mm-hmm. And even though it is very powerful for students of color, the data, according to a Stanford study, shows that it is also very helpful to white students as well. Mm-hmm. Both groups do better once they've taken an ethnic studies class. And when I say they do better academically, mm-hmm. grades, GPA goes up, and attendance improves.
I want to bring in Karina Herrera Loera into this conversation because you've gone ahead in your district, Alum Rock, to do just that and explore that. Tell us about what you guys decided on.
Yes, so as an elementary school district, we implemented a resolution, and it was adopted unanimously to implement ethnic studies in our district. So we have began the process of looking at the committee members The staff will then report back to us on a monthly basis as to where we are in the next steps. As we all know, it will take some time. It won't happen overnight, but it's long overdue. This is something that should have happened many years ago, but I'm happy that, it's happening now. And that undoubtedly it happened because of not just us as leadership pushing that through, but also the community coming together and demanding demanding better for their children.
Karina, I think there's, I don't want to say unanimous agreement, but most people agree that the history that kids learn needs to be looked at through the lens of multiple groups of people, all groups of people that have contributed. In the past, we know textbooks have not always reflected that, oftentimes told through the mainstream story or through the white lens, not necessarily through the lenses of all those different groups. However, why create ethnic studies as opposed to just considering it American studies, if you will, but ensuring that within that you also bring in primary source material written by people of color? Does giving it the ethnic studies designation allow you to do more with it or somehow enhance the learning? And I'll allow whoever wants to answer that.
I can go ahead and answer that. Absolutely. We all know that American studies or, history, we already have that in there. And we, as a nation, expected our curriculum providers to implement those things. And unfortunately, they're not in there. And so it's important to identify this information as ethnic studies. I'm a proud outcome of knowing who I am and who I represent. And so I know what that does for somebody, and it's important to outline that because unfortunately, until now, we haven't been implementing that in our curriculum.
All right, Assemblymember Jose Medina, I'm sorry, that is all the time we have for now. I do hope we'll continue this conversation with Karina Herrera-Loera as well, because this is not going away, and the redesigning of the curriculum will take a long time. So let's keep this conversation going. Thank you. We'll take a short break on the air and be right back with more on the new way for male contraception. All right, Facebook friends, it's a Friday. I know it's been a long week, so a lot to digest, and we never have enough time, but that's a good thing. That means there are a lot of things to talk about. Thank you for joining today. So in addition to having talked about putting the brakes on, the reopening in San Francisco, possibly in Contra Costa County, Governor Newsom's warning that cases are spiking and test positivity numbers are up. That is, we discussed that and we dissected that. But now coming up, we're going to talk with a UC Davis doctor who's leading a clinical trial on a male birth control. So perhaps you haven't been happy with the pill, ladies, or perhaps you haven't been happy with the traditional methods for male birth control, condoms, vasectomies, and this is something totally new. So we're going to talk about that. Post your questions. I'll try to fit one in if we can in the limited time that we have left. Oh, we have 1 minute. Okay. Check out some of your comments. Okay. Okay. Hey, Robert Kriletich, by the way, your question about would that bill only be for Southern California or all of California, referring to ethnic studies requirement. It's a bill for California. CSU system is the one Shirley Weber proposed and passed. This one for high schools by Assemblyman Medina, that would be for all of California if it passes as well. So that's your answer there. It would be for all of California. But of course, you heard some districts are moving ahead on their own to design their own ethnic studies course and curriculum and requirement, like Alum Rock, the primary elementary school district based in San Jose. All right, we're coming back on air. Welcome back. For the longest time, contraception is thought of mainly as a female issue, with male birth control never taking off in terms of funding or interest, seeming like a pipe dream. But now there's a National Institutes of Health study underway to see if a male birth control method could work, and they're seeking local couples to take part in the study. Joining us now is Dr. Mitch Kreinen, who's heading the study out of UC Davis Health. Dr. Kreinen, how are you?
Okay, good afternoon to you and to everybody.
Thank you. So when we think of contraception for men, we typically think of condoms or vasectomies. Nothing like the pill for women, a version of that. So this is something different. Tell us about it.
Well, researchers have been trying for years to find a good combination as the hormones that we have available, as the drugs that come into fruition are able to be tested. We finally have some combinations that look like they may work really well for men to be part of stepping up to the process, more than a condom or a vasectomy, to be able to have a reversible method and to be a contributor in the couple's attempting to prevent
So
pregnancy.
I understand this is a gel. Exactly how would you apply it? Where do you apply it? How long do you have to apply before it starts to work? And then how does it work?
Those are all great questions. So it's a hormonal gel. And just like a woman's birth control pill typically has 2 hormones, the gel has 2 hormones. The man applies it every morning, so it's a metered dose pump. So just like all of your viewers are using antibacterial wash, out of a pump right now, it's just one pump into one hand, and he'll rub it on his shoulder, and another pump on the other hand and rub that in his shoulder. And you'll do that every day. He has to make sure he has showered and dried off before applying it, and then keeps it dry for 2 hours afterwards. So it's once a day. And in the study, we follow the men monthly to make sure that their sperm counts go down to a low level, the kind of level you would see in somebody who is infertile. And once his sperm counts have reached that low level, then the couple can rely on the gel that he's using daily to prevent pregnancy. And then we'll follow the couple for a year while they're using the gel to prevent pregnancy.
So does suppressing the testosterone somehow affect the sex drive?
It can, and that's why this product has 2 hormones. And it's really easy to understand. What we do for women with birth control pills is really similar. There's 2 hormones in a birth control pill. One is meant to stop the ovary from both ovulating, releasing an egg, as well as stops hormone production. So if a woman doesn't have hormones around, she'll feel menopausal. So the other hormone, the estrogen, is to make her feel normal. And we do the same thing for the man. We're giving him a hormone to stop his testis from making sperm. It will also stop him from making testosterone. And the second hormone we're giving is testosterone, to give him the testosterone back so he'll feel normal. And we closely follow his testosterone levels throughout the study to make sure they're being maintained in a normal range and to make sure he feels normal.
All right, so we have about 20 seconds left. So I'm wondering, who are you seeking for the study? What do they need to know?
Basically, couples that have been in a relationship for at least a year and are committed to not trying to get pregnant for the next 2 years. We want healthy men and women, men up to the age of 50. Their partner, the female, has to be no more than 34, and the men can't be very, very heavy men, but just healthy couples who want to contribute to both their lives as well as the science that can advance lives for others.
All right, that's all the time we have on air, but Dr. Kreinen, stick around with us because we can answer one more question over on our live streams. We'll be right back. And we are on Facebook still with Dr. Mitch Kreinen of UC Davis, leading the study on a gel form of male contraception. So you're going into the second phase, right? What happened in the first phase?
Well, the first phase of studies is just to test the drug in men who are not going to be having sex with a woman to put her at risk of pregnancy, to make sure that it really does decrease the sperm counts to a level that would be considered effective. And it also then allows an initial evaluation of side effects to make sure it's something that they tolerate well. And now that there's a good dose, we can move on to the second phase.
Okay, gotcha. So is the idea that this is reversible and there wouldn't be long-term impact after use if you decide, we're done with that?
Exactly. So once the hormone is stopped, we'll follow the man and follow his sperm counts till they get back to normal, or if they want to get pregnant until his partner gets pregnant, which usually will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
Okay. I think we have about a minute. I'd like to hear you talk about what do you think is the biggest upside to this method if it works, and what is the biggest downside?
Well, I think the biggest upside is there would be a reversible method that men could use as well. And given that we know that a birth control pill or other methods like a pill are not very, very highly effective, it allows both the man and the woman to potentially both be using a method to prevent pregnancy. And it gives the man some, it doesn't put everything just on the woman to prevent pregnancy. It's a couple should have an equal relationship, and it will open up more opportunities for couples, especially if there's a woman, for example, who just doesn't tolerate hormones, but he can. It'll give more opportunities for couples to avoid pregnancy.
Have you discovered any potential downsides yet?
Well, there is always the possibility. Everybody will absorb hormone differently, that the man may not absorb enough testosterone, but that's also why we follow his testosterone closely. And for actually men that aren't absorbing enough, we give them an additional dose of testosterone to make sure that they have enough around.
Got it. So real quickly in 5 seconds, if people are interested, how do they find out more?
Easiest thing is just to search UC Davis male contraception, and they'll be able to find whatever they need online.
Right on cue. It's like you've done this TV thing before. Dr. Mitch Greinen, thank you so much. Good seeing you. Take care.
Thank you, Kristen. Take care.
And we're back on air. Thank you so much for joining us today on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every day at 3 o'clock on air and on live stream, answering your questions. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, ABC7News.com, and the ABC7 News app. World News Tonight is coming up next. I'll see you at 4 o'clock. Bye-bye.